conferences are cool. And like, I love conferences, and a lot of the organizations that I was a part of in undergrad, like I was a part of NSBE, like Nobuche, SWE, and things of that nature. Really cool. And I think the fact that they have those annual things that we can all kind of come together and travel and connect with one another is good. But I needed something, quite frankly, monthly. Like, I needed something like on a regular basis to be able to show me that there were other people that looked like me, that were doing what I was doing, that was experiencing what I was experiencing. So STEM Social is honestly an answer to something that I needed during undergrad. And it started to, fill out. Like, there's other things outside of, just connecting or having like those social networking events as well. But yeah, it's a direct answer to 18-year-old Camille just being like, are there any other Black people doing this? Am I just crazy for doing this? Is it just my parents that are like, yeah. Like, I need to see somebody that actually did it and made it through and is like, happy, But yeah, STEM Social is the answer to that.
Yo, plug me in.
Welcome to another episode of the STEM Plug Podcast. And here on the STEM Plug Podcast, we plug you in with amazing entrepreneurs and innovators doing some really cool things in science, technology, engineering, and math. And today is no different. We have another amazing guest, Camille Smith. And Camille's from my city. She's from Philly. So we're going to have a great episode today. So Camille is a chemical engineer, a social entrepreneur, and a content creator based in Philly. And outside of her 9-to-5 job, she lives a lifestyle really creating and diving into the complexities of how life is for a 20-something-year-old. So we're going to dive in today and really have a dope convo. So Camille, how's it going today?
It's going well. I'm really excited to be here.
Okay, for sure. So let's just plug in, right? You give me your background as a chemical engineer, a social entrepreneur, and a content creator. Share with us a little bit about your interests and what sparked your interest in even pursuing a career in STEM.
Great question. And I actually was reflecting on this recently with my parents. So to give a little bit of a backstory, I was super good at school when I was growing up, like all like social studies, English, what else? We had like a reading class. I was like honors, all those things, right? My school district, we had academic, accelerated, and honors everything, but I was in academic science. And in 7th grade, I was just very frustrated that I was in all these other honors classes, but I was in academic science. And I remember having a conversation with my dad saying like, 8th grade, like I want to go on to honors, because 8th grade was like a very pivotal portion in like our school system. So if you were in honor science, that gave you options, what you were going to do in high school, and our high school is from 9th through 12th. So I'm having this conversation with him, and I was like, like, you just have to take a chance on me. Like, cause parents were able to basically override, what, our teachers like said or recommended us for. So my dad was like, okay, like, cool. Like, I'll recommend you for honor science, or override you to honor science for 8th grade. And I literally fell in love with science. I fell in love with it. And 8th grade was like, at least for me, was like earth sciences and like clouds, like nebulous clouds and cirrus clouds. I can literally tell you anything that you want to know about clouds because that was such a pivotal portion of my life. And the rest is history. I went into high school. I was in honors bio. Honors chemistry was probably one of the most difficult classes I've ever taken. And because it was so difficult for me, I like really locked into, I've always had a growth mindset, and that like, I know that I can understand something. It's just a function of how it's being explained to me, or like how I learn it. Right. So I ended up falling in love with chemistry, took AP chemistry my senior year of high school. And again, talking to my dad, he was like, why don't you consider like chemical engineering? Like, you like chemistry, you're good at math, you're good at physics, like just try it out, see what happens. And I decided to declare chemical engineering, and it was a ride once I got to college, but that I just kind of locked in. I don't think I was necessarily prepared for I wouldn't even say the academic rigor, but like a lot of the other things that go into being a Black person in STEM, but I did it, and now here I am.
Thanks. So where did you go to undergrad at?
I went to Villanova University.
Oh, wow. I love Villanova. I'm a huge Villanova college basketball fan. So
Yeah,
That's
no,
that's
basketball was
dope.
definitely very cool during undergrad for sure. We won the NCAA championship in 2016, which is right before I got to college, but we still were
Mm.
able to go to like the parade in Philly and stuff. And then 2018, while I was a sophomore in college, we also won, which was very exciting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's, I'm someone that really enjoys the journey that someone went through, right, to get to where they're at, right? So tell us about your journey of really becoming a chemical engineer. What challenges did you face, and what advice do you have for, inspiring engineers that might be listening to our show?
Chemi was really hard as a blanket statement. I, looking back on it, would never change, what I majored in. I think it taught me how to think in systems, and I'm a very good problem solver now. I think I'm almost to my detriment sometimes. I'm almost able to like identify problems before other people are able to identify problems, which is honestly at work sometimes is like not gotten me in trouble, but I'm just kind of able to be like, like this isn't gonna work, and they're like, oh no, like this is how we do it usually, and then it doesn't work, and I'm like, we could have avoided it, right? So, but chemical engineering was super, super difficult. And I don't think it was solely because of the academic rigor. Villanova is a predominantly white institution, and there's a lot of things that come with that, just, off rip, but then also STEM has a lot of, or a lack of representation just overall. And especially as a Black woman, stepping into that field, it's, it was a love-hate relationship for an extended period of time. And I think when I eventually ended up graduating, I really had to look within myself to continue on the path, because undergrad was very lonely. It was very lonely. It was very difficult. I had to rely on a lot of my other friends, and I was one of 4 Black students in my chemical engineering class, one of 2 Black women. I had no Black professors during undergrad. It was hard. It was really, really hard. But advice that I could give to somebody else is, recognize that it's a difficult curriculum. A lot of the curriculum for chemi in particular, but also I think STEM as a whole, is geared to stretch you. And I think a lot of people that go into STEM from high school, like, we're the overachievers, like we're the overachievers, usually like we did really well in school, or maybe even some people, didn't even have to really study all that much, to get good grades. So they're like, like, next step, yeah, I can do this engineering thing, or I can do this STEM thing, and like kind of, do what I did before. But those classes are not intuitive.
Mm.
You take something like fluid mechanics or thermodynamics, and you're like, what is going on? Like, what is happening? But eventually, you will get to a point that I was at work and I was trying to explain something to somebody, and it becomes so innate to you that like when you're, talking about something like heat transfer and mass transfer, it makes sense now. But like when you're learning it, like there's sometimes that you're like, dang, like this is, I don't know. So my advice would be, recognize that it's difficult, ask questions as early as possible. Oh my goodness, ask questions as early as possible, because our curriculum builds on itself. And if you don't
Mm.
understand something before, you're not going to get the next subject, and it's just going to keep snowballing.
Yeah.
But recognize that you can do it. Anyone can do it. I think anyone is capable of doing anything they really want to. They just have to have the resources.
Wow, wow. That's a lot of I would say great advice, really for professionals, right? And I guess that leads me to my next question is really about your organization that you founded, STEM Social, right? So you're really
Mhm.
dedicated to connecting and developing Black professionals worldwide. What really inspired you to create that platform?
Honestly, undergrad. And
Mm.
it was also kind of funny because I was talking to a friend recently, and I STEM Social recently dropped, hoodies. So like that was like our
Mm.
first like set of merch. It's fall winter time, at least right now. And we did like the product photo shoot like at, Villanova. And my friend texted me and was like, yo, like it's honestly really poetic that like you ended up doing this shoot at Villanova, because that's when the ideas started brewing, that like we need an organization that doesn't just have a yearly conference. Like conferences are cool, and like I love conferences, and a lot of the organizations that I was a part of in undergrad, like I was a part of NESB, like Nobuche, SWE, and things of that nature, really cool. And I think the fact that they have those annual things that we can all kind of come together and travel and connect with one another is good. But I needed something, quite frankly, monthly. Like I needed something like on a regular basis to be able to show me that there were other people that looked like me that were doing what I was doing, that was experiencing what I was experiencing. So STEM social is honestly an answer to something that I needed during undergrad. And it started to, fill out. Like there's other things outside of, just connecting or having like those social networking events as well. But yeah, it's a direct answer to 18-year-old Camille just being like, are there any other Black people doing this? Am I just crazy for
Mm,
doing this? Is it just my parents that are like, yeah, yeah, yeah? Like, I need to see somebody that
yeah,
actually did it and made it through and is like, happy, But
yeah,
yeah, STEM social is the answer to that.
that's dope. So you travel all around the country and just do different events just to really build community?
Yeah, traveling in general is a very bad habit of mine because I will be so quick to buy a flight, like so quick.
Mm,
But I mean, a part of that is being able to again travel around to different places. So STEM Social has had events. We have two different types of events. We have Black Women in STEM meetups because I always want to hold a space specific for Black women because I feel like our experience is, niche. But just
yeah.
mixers, our Black people in STEM mixers are for everybody to come. And mix and mingle. So we've been in Philly, of course, New York, DC, Charlotte, Chicago, and Atlanta. So we're in 6 cities right now. We plan to extend into a minimum Houston and Boston next year because I don't know what's going on in Boston, but people have been in my comments like,
Oh
please,
wow.
please come up here. So I'm going to go to Boston for the first time for an event. But yeah, so I do recognize that eventually if we continue, growing the way that we are, I'm not going to be able to go to every single event because I do want to keep,
Yeah.
the stability of a 9 to 5, and I do enjoy, what I do. But right now, like I have the luxury of being able to travel around and meet people across the country and hopefully eventually across the
Yeah.
world. But it's been cool. It's been cool.
Yeah. No, that's interesting because I'm a robotic engineer and I also have my business STEM plug, right? So it's balancing your business that you're doing and also being in a very technical career that you're in, right? How do you balance your career, and also your role and founder as the CEO of STEM Social? How do you balance the two? Because it seems like it's a lot.
I wish I had a better answer. I
Yeah.
think I think I did have like a pivotal moment maybe like a year or so ago, and I was watching something, or I think I was watching a video or something. This woman was saying, because she also does a lot of stuff, and she was saying that when she recognized that you could only wear one hat at a time, that life just becomes a little bit easier. So when I'm at work, I'm an upstream process development scientist. Like that's what I'm doing. I'm locked in. I like the concept of multitasking, but the way that I view my work and the amount of effort that I want to put into it, like I can't really multitask because I want to put 100% of myself into whatever I'm doing, right? So
Mhm.
when I'm at work, that's what I'm doing. When I'm locked into some social or I'm having, a meeting or I'm at an event, that's what I'm doing. And I'm pouring, myself entirely into it. I think in the past few months, because we're about to have our 13th event this upcoming Saturday, November 11th, I need to start scheduling more breaks for myself. Like the way that I schedule everything else, like I need to start scheduling like when to rest and just when to chill at home. I do
Same.
think expanding my team, right? I do think expanding my team, both because I'm technically doing three, I guess, main buckets. So I have, of course, work, I have STEM social, but I also have like my own personal, freelancing, content creating business. Expanding that business and actually hiring a virtual assistant has been fantastic. Like literally has been like, if G is listening to this, like girl, wholeheartedly saved my life. Like literally she's the best. And I've been thinking about getting a virtual assistant for the longest time, but I really just had to, go full force and just like, all right, at least I can just try it for a little bit, see if I like it, see if it actually is helpful, and then kind of go from there. And for STEM Social, getting ambassadors in different cities across the United States, like you can't do everything by yourself. And that was a very hard lesson for me to learn. But once I started to trust other people with like my vision, life did become, much easier. Like I don't have to do everything. I have to learn how to delegate.
Yeah, nah. I mean, you definitely hit it right on the bar. I would say because I recently hired a virtual assistant as well. So
Yeah.
and this helped me a lot, right? And when you're looking to scale and kind of start, keep the pole keep moving, right? You
Right.
gotta understand and have those systems kind of set up. So nah, that's dope. So your content creation, right?
Yeah.
How do you connect that with your STEM background? How is that kind of connected?
So initially, I didn't. Initially, I was thinking very narrowly, and I thought they were two completely separate things. It was just initially content creating was just like an outlet. I started creating content in 2020, like during honestly the height of the quarantine. Because quite frankly, I was bored and I was at home, and I just graduated. I decided to live with my parents for like a year after because I was like, why am I going to pay rent if the world is closed? You know what I'm saying? But now I've realized that everything is storytelling. Like everything is storytelling. And a lot of the videos that initially boosted my platforms were me talking about undergrad and like talking about just like random stuff that happened that either was unfair or just things to look out for, advice that I could offer to other people. So now looking back on it, because that was 3 years ago, almost four, which is crazy to say. I don't know. Like, there's so many more intersections between STEM and just being creative. And honestly, creativity is necessary to be a good STEM professional. In order to problem solve effectively, you have to be creative. You have to be able to look at things, in a different lens because clearly the way that we were previously looking at it wasn't working. So yeah, content creation really it easily connects into what I'm doing with STEM social in particular, and also because I've learned how to edit and like my own little, I mean, like secret sauce, if you will, that like I put into like my content. I also put that into my STEM social content. And I think that's been how I can market STEM social because I don't necessarily have to, at least right now, delegate out or like hire out, a videographer, a photographer, an editor and all that good stuff because I can do a lot of that stuff because I, have been perfecting my craft with content creation. So it all connects, which is like kind of crazy because when I started, I was like, oh, this is just a little thing I'm doing on the side.
Wow. Nah, that's dope. That's dope. So I guess looking ahead, right? What are your aspirations and your goals, really for your, I guess, career within STEM and also STEM social and even your endeavors as a content creator? What are your future aspirations?
Okay, so for my career, I definitely think that I want to go the project management route, but I want to be science facing. So again, within every organization, project managers look a little bit different. Within my personal organization, it technically wouldn't be like a project management title. It's like a work stream lead title. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, project management, it can be the umbrella over a lot of different types of positions. But I know that I want to go in the direction of having my technical background, but being able to use that to influence, how we, again, I work for a pharma company, how we bring medications to patients, right? Moving projects along a certain timeline. So I think that's where I'm trying to head for work, or 9 to 5, if you will. STEM social, I want it to grow while keeping intimacy at like the focal point, because intimacy I think is the one thing that truly sets STEM social apart. I think a lot of other organizations that again I participate in and I love rely heavily on people being outgoing and being able to put themselves out there, when in reality that's just not feasible for a lot of people. So for me, I'm a super outgoing person. I've always been an outgoing person. So like networking events at these huge conferences have like 10 20,000 people, are cool, and like I am able to leave with like some connections, but everybody's not able to do that. So if I'm able to grow it, offer more programming throughout the year, but still be able to cap those events at like max 50 people so people don't feel overwhelmed, I would love that. I would love that so much. And being able to, again, extend into other cities that we're not in just yet, actually touch the West Coast because we haven't gone over there. I've traveled there personally, but like we haven't gone there as an org. And content creation, honestly, just work with brands that I use on a regular basis. I've recently picked up cooking, like the past like year. I love cooking stuff now. I used to hate cooking. Well, I still hate doing dishes, which I have to figure out
Yeah.
how to be better at that. But I've loved cooking. So like working with like, I use a certain pan, working with that specific brand, or like I use an air fryer, working with that brand, just to again tie into being a 20 something, just being an adult in general, being a human being is hard. So partnering with brands to be able to bring messaging that like we all do have a shared experience of trying to balance and juggle everything that we're doing in our lives. And like, this is something that works for me. Like using my air fryer makes cooking when I don't feel like cooking way easier. And like, I actually will eat, 2, 3, 4 times a day because I have, that appliance that I'm able to use. And that can extend to like working out, that can extend to traveling, that can extend to whatever. So content creation is more learning myself, but being able to kind of share that with the community that's been, increasingly more invested in me and like my journey.
Okay.
That was a lot.
Nah, that's bars. That's bars. So where can our listeners really plug in with everything you have going on, your social medias, everything STEM social, where can they plug in?
Yes. Okay. So me personally, I am Camille Smith on every platform, whether that be Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, technically X now, Twitter, um over there as well. But I've also been on Threads. I feel like Threads is literally just like me yelling into a void, and I've really been enjoying it
Yeah.
recently. For STEM Social only has a Instagram page currently. We do hope to end up expanding, excuse me, into other platforms as well. But STEM Social, STEMSOULCIAL, Soul Show. But yeah, so between me and I always also have everything tagged in my bios on any given page. So it's very easy to navigate between my pages. And I've been very intentional about making sure that it's easy to find stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I got one final question for you, Camille. I didn't ask you this beforehand, right? But
Okay.
when everything's all said and done, right? What do you want your legacy to be and STEM Social's legacy to be? Give me one
Such a
word.
great
Just give me
question.
one word. One word to
Com-
describe your legacy.
Community.
Okay.
Yeah. I want people to feel like they can actually foster legitimate connections because life is lonely
Mm,
as hell.
yeah.
And even as an outgoing person, like life can still feel lonely. So if I'm able to create spaces that people can genuinely feel like they are seen and that they're known by other people, whether they have shared interests or not, then I'll be happy.
Nah, that's bars. That's bars. Well, Camille, we appreciate you plugging in on the STEM Plug podcast today. You definitely educated me on Kim just about being a content creator within STEM. So we really appreciate you plugging in and everything for our listeners. This is another episode of the STEM Plug podcast. Make sure you subscribe and like and keep plugging in.